Okay, this is the video for the Unit 5 test review. Our test is on Wednesday, and remember the review is worth 5 points. Okay, so here what we're doing is we're talking about quadratics. Remember it's a U-shaped or your linear, which is a line. And you've got choices here when you have a quadratic and a linear. You can have two solutions. You can have one solution, and then you can also have no solution or no real solution. Okay, so for the first one, I'm going to do number 4. The main idea here is you want to make them equal to each other. So for instance, I know this is my y, so I'm going to plug it in there for my y. So that gives me 10x equals x squared plus 25. And then remember, I have to make it equal 0 because I'm solving for a quadratic. So minus 10x minus 10x. And then I need to write them in the right order. So 0 equals x squared minus 10x plus 25. Okay, so now I need to factor it. So what two numbers will multiply to get 25 and combine to get negative 10? And that's going to be negative 5 and negative 5. So x minus 5, x minus 5, which means that x just equals 5. So this will actually be an example of just one solution. Okay, so I know what the x part of that solution is. Now I need to find out what the y part is. So I can choose either equation to plug them into. I'm going to choose this one. So I know y is going to equal 10 times x, or 10 times 5. And 10 times 5 is 50. So this will intersect at 550. So your answer here, the way you'd write it, is an ordered pair, 550. I'll take a look at number 2 also. All right, on number 2, again, I'm making them equal to each other. I know what the y equals. That's what the y equals. Okay, so what I now have is I have negative 12x plus 36 equals x squared minus 11x minus 36. Again, I'm going to make it equal 0. So I'm going to move everything to the other side. And notice how I'm lining it up with what I'm combining it with. Okay, this is where I get my 0. All that cancels out. So 0 equals x squared plus x minus 72. So now I need to figure out what two numbers will multiply to get negative 72 and combine to get 1. Well, I know that 9 times 8 will give me that. And if I make the 8 a negative, that will also give me 1. So x plus 9 and x minus 8. So x equals negative 9 and x equals 8. So this is actually an example where there's going to be two solutions. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick these equations. This is the easiest one to work with, and I'm going to substitute in those numbers. So here I've got negative 12 times negative 9 plus 36. And then over here I'm going to have negative 12 times 8 plus 36. That gives me 144 here. So one of my answers is negative 9, 144. And then my other answer over here is negative 60. And again, I'm just multiplying and adding there. And so then my other answer is with that 8, so 8 and negative 60. All right, on the next one down here, this is just using your calculator. They're telling me an eagle standing on a cliff 12 feet above the ground saw a ball. The eagle flies downward at a rate 2 feet per second, modeling this equation. So here's one of the equations they're giving me. And then the other equation they're giving me is y equals negative 3x squared plus 4x plus 9. And what they want to know is, does the eagle intersect the path of the ball? All right, so if I come up here and do y equals, I'm going to put in the negative 2x plus 12. And then I'm also going to put in y2, negative 3x squared plus 4x plus 9. And when I do that, I'm just going to look at my graph. Okay, and I can't really see it, but I think it's going to be, it's about right there. So I'm going to do second trace intersect. enter, 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 and I get this answer. Now, it looks all weird because of all the decimals, but really, y'all, that's just a 1 and that's a 10. So yes, it does get it. So yes, it does. And then we're at 1:10. So this would be your time. I don't know why I just wrote an S there. Ignore that. All right, so this is my time, and that is my height. Okay, all right, let's now, so this is all the linear quadratics, and now we're going to move on. All right, so over here, this is going to be the matrix with the calculator and everything. So the main thing here is you really need to know how to write the equations. I'm going to do number 8. Now this one here, you won't need to really worry about solving it. You just need to know how to write it. So they're telling me John, Nolan, and Trevor are brothers. John is the oldest, Trevor's the youngest. Here's where we start getting into the equations. Nolan is, so N equals twice as old as Trevor, so 2 times T. Then it says the sum, well, sum means to add, of their ages. Well, who's the there? It's John plus Nolan plus Trevor, and it's all going to be 13 years old. And then it says difference. Well, difference means subtract. Well, who am I subtracting? John minus Trevor. So John minus Trevor is 5, so equals 5. All right, down here it says 3 friends went to the movies and bought drinks, popcorn, and candy. Jessica spent $15.50 and bought a drink, a popcorn, and 3 candies. Okay, so my equation for Jessica is going to be a drink plus popcorn plus 3 candies equals $15.50. And then it says Adam spent $18.50 and bought 2 drinks plus a popcorn plus 2 candies, and they spent $18.50. And then it says Scott spent $19 and bought a drink, 2 popcorns, 1 candy, and it was $19. Okay, so if I come over here and actually do my matrix, I have 1, 1, 3, 15.50. I have 2, 1, 2, 18.50. And then I have 1, 2, 1, 19. Okay, so if I put that in my calculator, I'm going to go to the matrix, the second matrix. You go over to edit, make sure it's a 3 by 4. Now I'm going to type over everything here. So 1, 1, 3, 15.50. And then I'm at 2, 1, 2, 18.50. And then I'm at 1, 2, 1, 19. Okay, and then I'm going to get out of the matrix. Remember, there's a lot of you go into it, then you get out of it. I'll go over to math, go down to RF. So B is what I'm looking for, right there with the 2 R's. I'm going to go, I didn't get out of the matrix. I can already tell I made a mistake. So second quit, get back into the matrix, now go to RF. All right, there it is. Okay, now I'll go back into the matrix and hit enter twice. And those are my answers. Now, they only wanted the popcorn. That's what the question asked for. So notice popcorn was the second thing I entered, drink and popcorn, which means the way that I put it in will be drink and popcorn. So the popcorn is $6.50. Okay, so popcorn is $6.50. Okay, on this one here, this one's actually all ready to be put into the matrix. So I'm not going to really spend too much time on this one. Just remember that line means the equal sign. And then when you set it up, make sure you put the negatives. And remember, these are negative ones here. You can't just leave off the negatives. So this one's all ready to go. All the variables are lined up. It's perfect. All right, now this one, though, you'll notice it's a little messed up. And you have to make sure all the variables are lined up. Well, right now I've got variables on the right-hand side, so I need to move them over. Okay, so the first line would now be 4x minus 3y plus 2z equals 12. Now the next one, I got two things I got to subtract over. I got to subtract the minus 3x. I also have to subtract the 3z. And shove that in there a little bit. Whoops. And the only thing I have left over here is the negative 5. So here I now have negative 3x plus positive 2y, or plus 2y, minus 3z equals negative 5. Now again on the last one, I got to move a couple things. So negative 2x plus y minus 7z equals 8. And then at that point, you can just put it in the matrix. Okay, so I'll do this one. So 4, negative 3, 2, negative 3, 2, negative 3, negative 2, 1, negative 7, and then 12, negative 5, and 8. So if I come over here and again put it in the matrix, I guess I'll forget. Okay, so go into the matrix, go to edit. It's already a 3 by 4, and then I'm just going to start putting numbers in, typing it all in. I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to go back in it, go to math, go down to the RF, make sure it's the 2R one, go back into it and hit enter twice. And those are my answers. So remember, the order that you put them in is the order they come out. So x equals 1, y equals negative 4, and z equals negative 2. Now remember the conversation we had about the z, y'all. You need to make sure that your z does not look like a 2, or you're going to think it's a 2. So be very careful there. Or these y's turning into 4s. So be very careful with your handwriting. Okay, let's flip it over. Okay, so on these here, you're solving a system. So on the first one here, they give you a graph, but I think I'd rather see you solve it by hand. Now, remember, the two things here is you need to make sure you have the same coefficient. So remember, that's just the number in front of the variable, the number in front of the letter. And you also need to have the opposite sign. So you need to have a positive and a negative. Okay, so I'm going to ignore the graph here and just kind of work over it. So I notice that I have a 1 here. So, but I also notice they're both negatives. So what I'd want to do on this one is I actually want to multiply one of them by negative 1 so I can flip the sign. So now what I have is I have negative x plus y equals negative 3. So make sure you multiply everything by that negative 1. And then I've got 7x minus y equals negative 3. Okay, so if I just start solving this one, notice how my y's now cancel out, so they're canceled out. And this gives me 6x, because if I combine the negative 1 and the 7, I get 6x equals negative 6. I'm going to divide. X equals negative 1. Now, here my answers are going to be ordered pairs. So I'm going to plug it back into the top one. So my x here was actually negative 1, so negative 1 minus y equals 3. I'm going to add that 1 over, add that 1 over. That gives me negative y equals 4. Divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, y equals negative 4. So I now know my answer is negative 1, negative 4. Okay, so here I'm going to just check my answer. So I'm going to do that just by substituting. So here if I substitute, I'm going to have the x, which I found to be negative 1. So negative 1 minus the negative 4 I got for my y, and it should equal 3. Okay, but then also make sure you check it on the second one. So here I'm going to do 7 times negative 1 minus the negative 4 I got for my y, and I should get negative 3, and I do. So now I know that my answer is correct. All right, on number 14 here, again, I got to make sure I have those same rules, the same coefficient and opposite signs. I noticed that I do have opposite signs here, but I can't really think of anything that would make 8 and 6 like look pretty. I'd have to do two things here. I do notice my 10 and 5, one has a negative and one has a positive, and so that's good. And I also notice that if I take this bottom one and multiply the whole thing by 2, that'll make that 5 into a 10. So now I've got negative 8x minus 10y equals 24. And then if I multiply that whole one by 2, I get 12x plus 10y equals 4. Again, make sure you multiply everything. Okay, I can cancel these out. So that now leaves me with 12x minus 8x, which is 4x. So 4x equals, and then this whole thing here is 28. So divide by 4, x equals 7. All right, now I'm going to take that 7 and substitute it back in. I'm going to choose the 6x one. So I'm going to do 6 times 7, because that's what my x was, plus 5y equals 2. 42 plus 5y equals 2. Oh, whoa. Minus 42. Minus 42. That gives me 5y equals, and y'all cannot see that anymore, 5y equals negative 40. Divide by 5, y equals negative 8. Okay, so again, I know this crosses at 7, negative 8, but again, y'all, please check your answers. You have a calculator. So here, I'm going to take that ordered pair, that x and that y, and I'm going to substitute them in. So I'm going to check this one. So negative 8 times the x I got, which was 7, minus 10 times the y I got, which was negative 8. And you get 24, which is good. And now I'm going to do 6 times 7 plus 5 times negative 8, and I should get 2. And I do. All right, that's perfect. Now remember, you're going to have word problems also. There's not one on here, but the word problems are going to be kind of like this process. Just remember, you have to have the same coefficient, opposite signs. Okay, on the back here, these are those more simple ones. I'm only going to do one of them. So here, just always start with the one with one variable. So for instance, this one's all jumbled up, but I'm going to start with this one because it only has one variable. So if I do that, that's going to give me, I'll have 6v equals 18. And if I divide by 6, v equals 3. Then I'm going to move to this one because it only has two variables. And I'm going to use the v, and the v was 3. So 4 times 3 plus x equals 16. 12 plus x equals 16. Minus 12 minus 12, x equals 4. Okay, now I'm going to go to the top one. I know what v is. So I've got 2 times 3 plus 4 times 4 plus 2z equals 24. Whoops, kind of had to get a little smaller there. Let me get that out of the way. All right, this is 6 plus 16 plus 2z equals 24. This gives me 22 plus 2z equals 24. Minus 22 minus 22. 2z equals 2. Divide by 2. Z equals 1. All right, now I know what all my answers are, so now I'm going to plug them in because, again, you have a calculator. Check your answer. All right, so I'm going to come here. I'm going to substitute everything in. Okay, so I've got 2 times v plus 4 times 4 plus 2 times 1, and I should get 24. And I do. All right, also remember, even on these questions here, you could use your calculator. So for instance, on number 1, I could just type this in. I'm trying to get it so you can see it. Okay, so on this one here, I could type it in. So like x squared minus 6x plus 9. And then down here, I would have negative x plus 5. So if I graph that, that's what I'm looking at. So I know I'm going to have two answers. So second trace intersect, enter. So one of my answers is 1, 4. And then I'm going to do second trace, intersect again, but I'm going to move it to the other answer that I haven't gotten yet. And then enter, enter, enter. And I also get 4, 1. Okay, that should be about it. Let me know if you have any questions. And please study. Of course, if you're watching this video, that means you are. So, good job.